Back now, Reliable Sources. I'm Brian Stelter. We are talking about this Ukraine scandal, the president's handling of the matter, his smearing of this whistleblower, and this mystery still at the heart of the story. What did the whistleblower hear? What did the whistleblower allege? Let's bring the panel in now. Political and business strategist Tara Dowdell, who, by the way, was an apprentice contestant way back in the day, a national correspondent for the Washington Post, Philip Bump, and national security advisor under Obama, now a CNN national security analyst, Samantha Vinograd. There's been a lot from the Joe Biden campaign this week. They've been trying to figure out how to respond to this mess, these questions about Hunter Biden. Let's look first at the beginning of what happened with Biden on the campaign trail, asked by Fox's Peter Doocy a question about his son. Watch.
Mr. Vice President, how many times have you ever spoken to your son about his overseas business dealings?
I've never spoken to my son about his overseas business dealings.
Well, that seems very, very hard to believe. Obviously, a father's going to talk to his son about the business. But let's continue here. Here's how Biden continued to talk to the Fox reporter. Watch.
Here's what I know. I know Trump deserves to be investigated. You should be asking him the question, why is he on the phone with a foreign leader, trying to intimidate a foreign leader, if that's what happened? That appears what happened. You should be looking at Trump. Ask the right question.
Ask the right question. This has become a chant of sorts on social media. Biden supporters loved this moment. Samantha, do you think he has a point?
Well, Brian, I'm not part of the Biden campaign. I do work at the Biden Institute at the University of Delaware, and I think he does have a point. There is a series of false equivalencies probably purposefully being set up by the Trump team, by Rudy Giuliani, and perhaps by some members of the media. There's a blitzkrieg of bad behavior that we're learning about because of the dogged reporting of members of the media right now associated with the Trump team and their actions through Rudy Giuliani and potentially by the president himself. It's hard to keep track of the potential abuses of power that the president engaged in, and the fact that Rudy Giuliani went to Ukraine and really demoted our national security team by working with the Ukrainian government to try to get dirt on Vice President Biden. Any wrongdoing by Vice President Biden has been looked at by the Ukrainian authorities and may potentially be looked at further within the United States. But that is very different, again, than the myriad potential abuses of power that are being outlined by the media because the whistleblower complaint is not being forwarded to Congress. And we cannot fall into the trap of falling for President Trump's false equivalencies. He does it whenever he's under pressure. He mixes apples and oranges so that we get distracted from the real story, and we have to be more clear-eyed than that.
The Biden campaign is out with a memo this weekend trying to diffuse this story. Here's a part of what the memo says at the end, addressing the press. It says, any article that doesn't demonstrably say at the outset that there's no factual basis for Trump's claims is misleading readers and viewers. That's the message from the campaign. But Tara, as a PR strategist, is the campaign doing enough? Look, I asked a spokesperson to come on this program, speak today. They declined. Biden has never sat down for a Sunday show interview all year long. I wonder if they're doing enough to combat Trump.
Well, first of all, the Trump strategy, and you talked about it, and you talked about it, Brian, as well, is deny, deflect, distract, attack. We have now moved into the attack phase. So their strategy is now to try to put the onus on Joe Biden to, in fact, distract and attack. And so I think that Joe Biden's campaign does need to be aggressive. I think they could be even more aggressive. And I think you will see them be more aggressive because they know what is going on here. I think what you're seeing in terms of this pause is them really sitting down to try to come up with a plan, understanding that what this strategy is and to make sure that they respond effectively and more aggressively.
That's interesting.
And you're seeing that escalation of more aggressive response. And so I think you'll continue to see that.
Let's continue our conversation. Keith, are you frustrated with Democratic leaders? You just said in the previous panel you don't care if Democrats lose seats in the general election in 2020 in the House and Senate, that it's important to begin impeachment inquiry.
Yeah, you know, look, Nancy Pelosi has already said that Donald Trump is unfit for office. She said that he belongs in prison, and she said that he's self-impeaching. If that's not enough to initiate at least an inquiry, then I don't know what is. And you add to that, it's long before we get to Ukraine, long before we even get to Russia. If you look at the fact that he's hiding his tax returns, that he had his lawyer convicted, his campaign chairman convicted, that his national security advisor pleaded guilty to federal crimes, that he's been implicated in federal crimes. There are 10 counts of obstruction of justice. If you look at all the different elements that are building up to this case, it's irrefutable that this guy deserves to be held accountable. And we, who are citizens of the country and who have a platform, have a duty to do something. If we don't, we're just as responsible, I think.
Essie, where are, other than Mitt Romney, who issued that statement, where are the Republicans?
Yeah, Mitt Romney is he's sort of the Karen of Republicans. He wants to talk to your manager about this. And where's the courage?
But you can say that, but he's the only Republican office holder that has said anything.
It's true, and these are, we're investigating exactly what happened, but we have the president admitting to what we're all talking about, and this should be troubling to Republicans, to Democrats, to school teachers, to children. It should be, it should be troubling in the extreme to everyone, and it's a stain not just on Democrats for sort of threatening and not doing it, but for Republicans for standing by.
And take a listen to the Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell just minutes ago, Margaret. He seems to be blaming this all on Democrats.
Sure, why not? It is regrettable that House Intelligence Committee Chairman Schiff and Senator Schumer have chosen to politicize the issue.
Look, it's days like today where I really miss John McCain's voice in the United States Senate. John McCain, who is the voice of democratic values to authoritarians everywhere, especially to freedom fighters, frankly, in the Ukraine and in Russia. I mean, think about the difficult position the Ukraine's in right now. I mean, the Ukraine needs U.S. aid to fight back Russia.
They need Trump to like them.
Yes. So it's just the moral clarity from the right is missing, and we're all worse for it.
It's totally MIA. To address what McConnell just said, the politicization occurs when the DNI, who is required by law to release a whistleblower report that the Inspector General deems credible and urgent, refuses to do so for the first time ever, apparently at the behest of the Department of Justice and probably the White House. Okay, that's the politicization. You want to solve this problem? Put forward the whistleblower report. We should not have to escalate to impeachment over an issue like this. But at the same time, there's a problem that we've got an impeachment caucus on both extremes. They've dumbed the whole process down. Bill Clinton's impeachment was about lying over oral sex, for God's sakes, and the obstruction claims that Republicans were making, some of whom are in the Senate still, including McConnell and Lindsey Graham, are saying they're not interested in pursuing with regard to Donald Trump. At some point, you either have got to say, we're going to move past situational ethics and try to apply transcendent standards to our executive and our laws and our Constitution, or that defines deviancy down further, and that's what we're doing.
And Lindsey Graham was in the House at the time, but he was an impeachment.
Yes.
He was an impeachment manager. Take a listen to Democratic Congressman Jim Himes. He serves on the Intelligence Committee. He's in favor of impeachment, Keith, but he did raise concerns. Take a listen.
The presidential election is the single and only way that Donald Trump will leave office. Comes down to a couple of states. It comes down to Michigan, it comes down to Pennsylvania, it comes down to Wisconsin. If you do something that in those states, not in Connecticut or in New York or California, but that in those states significantly reduces your chances of beating Donald Trump, you increase the chances of a second term.
Again, Congressman Himes supports impeachment, but he's basically saying if Democrats go too fast, they could guarantee Donald Trump's reelection.
I don't agree. I think that Democrats should lead based on courage, not based on fear. I don't like the idea of taking an opinion poll or putting your finger in the wind to decide what's the right thing to do. I don't like the idea of making decisions based on what the political cost is instead of what is the moral imperative. We have a constitutional duty to act.
All right, thanks. Everyone stick around. We got more to talk about.